In this video, we're going to review the process for creating an issue for approval or IFA submittal package here from Tekla Structures. To get started, we're going to come up here to the Drawings and Reports menu at the top of Tekla, and then we're going to go to the Document Manager, where you can see that I've created a series of erection and assembly shop drawings that I'm going to release for approval. Now, the first thing that I want to cover here is that I've added some key properties and things here to the drawings that are going to then import into Tekla PowerFab or Tekla EPM for the fabricator. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, let's say that if I were processing this submittal package, I would select all the drawings. And the one thing that I want to make sure of is that there is a revision A or some sort of revision letter or number that basically signifies that this is being submitted for approval. And I tend to use letters for approval releases and then numbers for fabrication releases. So I'm starting with Rev A. Now, if we come in here and right click and choose the revision option here, we can see that I've got this revision information filled in. So this is the mark, this is the created by, checked by, and this information and this description will actually import across into Tekla PowerFab or Tekla EPM. So it's important for you to set this information, not just put the revision mark, but set this additional information for it importing into the project management module of Tekla EPM or Tekla PowerFab. That revision information is also really important for you as the detailer because it appears on your drawing title blocks. Now, the other thing here that also appears on the title blocks that's important for importing into Tekla EPM or PowerFab for the fabricator is if we right-click on these drawings and go to User Defined Attributes and go to the Workflow tab, here's where we're going to put the drawn by initials, the check by, and the check date. And in the default Tekla basically title blocks for drawings, this information will show up, and then you will also be able to include this in the Tekla EPM export package. Okay, so you want to make sure that those user-defined attributes are all set. And then from there, the last thing that I tend to do, and this is a little bit different process that I specifically do, especially for fabricators that request the Tekla Structures native model for them to be able to open up and filter the drawing list or the document manager by a particular submittal package. So what I do is I right-click and I go to Properties here. And in the Title 3 field, what I do is I tend to uncheck all the checkboxes. I select all my drawings that I'm including in a particular package, and I put in the unique submittal number or transmittal or package number that is associated to these drawings. That way, the fabricator can come back at any time and they can filter by this particular submittal package number in the document manager here in the search. They can filter by that, and then they can find all the drawings in Tekla Structures and then even select objects in the model based on that particular submittal package number. All right, so that's the last thing that I have set there. So just as a quick recap or summary, we want to make sure we have the revision set, the drawn by and the checked by information, as well as potentially a unique submittal number here in the document manager to make it easy for the fabricator to see exactly what has been released in this package and have that information import into Tekla EPM. Now at this stage, I've only created erection drawings and assembly shop drawings. I have not created additional single part drawings because usually I try to wait until after approval to create those drawings just in case additional design changes may come in during the approval process. And so rather than cleaning up additional and single part drawings and dealing with connection or part mark changes, I try to hold off on those if possible. Now, sometimes fabricators need to get a jump start on creating their parts and ordering certain materials, and so they may request that you create the single part drawings at approval, as well as export CNC files, which would then make this almost feel a little bit more like the process for releasing for fabrication, and I suggest you go take a look at that video for that sort of process and information. But typically in an approval release, we're just going to be focusing on erection drawings here, as well as our assembly shop drawings. Now we'll go ahead and focus on printing out our drawings. And what I typically do is I print a PDF. So we have all of our drawings selected here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose the print option here. And when I do that, the print dialog box will appear. And what we can do is we can change a couple of particular settings here to optimize exactly how we want these to print out. Now, if I click in the center box here, you can actually see a preview. Now, in a normal steel detailing license of Tekla Structures, you're not going to see this Tekla Structures partner watermark here. This is just because I'm using a partner license, but that normally wouldn't be there. Now, a couple things that we need to change is we usually want to print to black and white. So we're going to set that here. we'll try to tell it to fit to the paper or use the scale, and then I usually try to let the printing option automatically detect the paper sizes. If you go to the drop down here, you're going to see all of the different drawings that are in here, and you can actually do a quick scan or a quick check and see how the PDFs are going to print out based on your settings by pressing the next and the previous buttons. Now here we can see that everything looks pretty good, and a couple of other settings that we want to make sure that we have checked or unchecked are that we don't want to include the revision mark to the file name. I usually just leave this out. The revision data and revision information, just like I showed you before, that's going to be included and will be soaked up by Tekla PowerFab or Tekla EPM, and I don't need to include that in the actual PDF file name. So I usually leave this unchecked. Then we also don't want to output to a single PDF binder. If you did that, that would combine all the PDFs into one. We don't want that. In order to bring this into Tekla PowerFab and EPM, we want individual single files. Now, one thing that I do sometimes do is I'll just say open the folder when all of the printing is done. And I don't want to open up each individual PDF, so I'll leave that unchecked. So the other last thing here is that we are printing the PDF. That's what this button here at the top shows. And it's going to print in this ./plot files, which the ./ just means that this current model folder, and it's going to print all the PDFs into this subfolder called plot files. Now the line properties, you shouldn't need to change this if you've already got that set up, but that basically controls your pen weights. Okay, so once we've got that all set, we're just going to go ahead and go down here to the lower left, and I'll press the print button. And here, if we've got an example of something where we get a message as the detailer that, hey, there's duplicate file names, well, what this means is I've actually got an anchor bolt piece mark or an assembly drawing that's called AB1, and then I've also got an erection drawing called AB1. So sometimes if you have assembly drawings and erection drawings, or part drawings and assembly drawings with the same kind of like file name, then you may need to print them separately or into separate folders, so that way you can print files with the same name and get those successfully out to the separate folders. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here just separately, but this shows you the basic process of printing. Now here it's just basically showing you that none of the other files got written because this first file here failed due to this same piece mark. So I need to go back and I need to print this into a separate folder. So let's maybe do that. Let's actually browse here and let's create some separate folders. So I'm going to say a new folder here, and I'll call this Erection. And then I'll make another folder called Shop, which is actually going to be tied to the same exact folder names that I'm going to put in my approval submittal package. All right, so now I've got that selected. I'm going to choose Erection here, and I'll select that folder, and you see it goes into Plot Files Erection. Or I could actually browse to my Submittal folder if I want to plot directly into there, if I'd like to do that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this up real quick here. I'll go back, and I'm only going to choose my erection drawings, and then I can right-click and say Print. So I'll print those drawings, and then I'll just print to the erection folder. Everything looks good with the settings, so I'll print that, and now you can see that that error doesn't happen. Now when this is complete, it opens up, and there is the individual PDF files for each erection drawing. Now we're going to go ahead and print to the shop folder. So I'll go ahead and browse to that, and then I'll go to the shop, and I'll choose that option next. I'll close this down for a second, and I'll select on all of my assembly drawings, and then I'll go ahead and right-click and choose the print option again. Now from here, I'm going to go to Plot Files Shop. I'll say Print. And then when that's all done, we will see our folder open, and there's all of our individual PDF files for our assembly shop drawings. So now we have the shop and the erection drawings folder, and what we can do is we can actually copy these and go put them over into our approval submittal package folder. Okay, so here I can see that I've created this submittal folder here, submittal number 2 IFA. And then I've got my 2 subfolders, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste these from my plot files folder into here. And now we can see that those PDFs have then been copied over here to my submittal package folder. Now I'm going to quickly cover the advanced option settings that control how the PDF files were named. And this is really important for tying into the Tekla PowerFab or Tekla EPM export. So if we come up here to the Tekla menu, we will then go to Settings, and then we'll go to Advanced Options, and then there is this printing category here on the left. When we go in there, there are these settings here for XS drawing _ plot file name, A for assembly drawings, G for erection drawings or general arrangement, and W for workshop drawings. And if you're using multi-drawings, then M also matters here. Now what you'll see is that this is a little bit different than the out-of-the-box settings. what I've done is I've actually kind of just stripped things down. I don't include some of the extra like kind of part names or assembly names in there, and I don't have the revision on here. Now, the reason why this is important is that this is basically just keeping the PDF files in its simplest naming convention possible. Now, what's important to understand is that maybe a couple of years ago, the Tekla EPM team or Tekla PowerFab team, they made and adjusted the exporter tool that they have to actually read these settings. So, because detailers have different naming conventions and things for some of their PDF exports, they actually come in here and try to read these settings. Now, if you get too complicated of a setup, then it basically gets harder for them to kind of control that. Now, what I do is I just go back to the old school simplest form of naming the PDFs. I pretty much just have the drawing name or the piece mark name basically being outputted as the PDF file. So I just wanted to make sure that you as the detailer understand that this name not only controls how the PDFs are created, but the Tekla PowerFab and Tekla EPM export will actually read these settings as well to make sure that it identifies and automatically matches the PDF files with recognizing how to link those to the assemblies and parts in the actual export. All right, so let's go ahead and do the actual Tekla EPM export. I'll go to the document manager here. It'll open up all of my drawings. And in this particular case, I can select all of the drawings that I'm submitting for approval. Next, what I'll do is I'll go up here to the Tekla menu. I'll go to the export option, and I'll go to Tekla PowerFab here at the bottom. When I choose that, we'll then see this PowerFab dialog box appear. Now I've got some save settings just to save a little bit of time that I'm going to load up. But basically you can see here that I've actually put in the Submittal package number here. And I'm going to use the file extension of pfxt. I choose this rather than the old school way of doing it with zip. Just so that way it's very clear for the fabricator to understand that this is the PowerFab basically export that they're going to be using and importing into PowerFab. And when you just have a general zip, then they don't know whether this is the Tekla model folder or if this is specifically the PowerFab export. Now, just from a terminology point of view, whenever you're talking with like the Tekla team or just consultants and things, you're going to hear that this is the XML import file. And so really this is just a zip file that contains the drawings and CNC files on a fab release, and also an XML file that contains the quantities and information about assemblies and parts and bill of materials. But really, the thing that we should be saying is that it's not the XML file, it's really this pfxt file that contains all the project information that will be imported into Tekla PowerFab. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to use the selected from drawing list. So that way, only the selected set of drawings that I'm choosing here in the document manager are what's going to be included in this package. The reason why I use this versus say all or selected from model is that it allows me to do partial submittals. So if I have a really large job and I'm only submitting certain things for approval and I've got another sequence or package that's in progress, I'm really only selecting these specific drawings to go out in this particular package. Now, I'm going to include all of these other checkboxes here on the left. And the one important thing that you might want to determine and coordinate with the fabricator is whether you're going to include the bill of material or not. Now, some fabricators, they prefer not to have the bill of materials included in the approval package. So even though you have the full bill of material and the quantities, they don't want the bill of material because they don't want to be imported into production control. They don't want to deal with any materials until they actually have a release for fabrication. Now, this is kind of some fabricators, but I just want to point out that if you uncheck this, then the drawings will go across, which will import into project management in Tekla EPM, but then the bill of materials will not. Now, most fabricators say that they actually want this turned on. And they do want to get that preliminary import of the bill of materials and the parts and the assemblies and the quantities. So that way they can either do an early nest and get some pricing on materials. Even if they're doing just-in-time purchasing for fabrication, they kind of want to get an idea of what's coming in. And they may even pre-order if there's not a lot of changes expected on the job during the approval process. So usually you're going to include the bill of material, but it's worthwhile asking the fabricator if they want that or not. Now, we've already printed out the drawings. And so here we can see that we have these different folders that we can read different types of drawings from. Now we had a conflict here between our assembly drawings and our erection drawings. So what I might do is I might actually browse to this separate folder here. So what I can do is I can either browse or I can just type that in. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in plot files, and then I'll just type in erection here for, well actually for the main drawings we'll leave that alone. But for shop drawings we'll just type in shop. And then for GA drawings, which is erection, we'll go ahead and type in erection here rather than having to browse. And now we are all set. So it'll read from those subfolders for those specific types of drawings. Now, I'm not exporting CNC files here because this is just an approval package. But again, if the fabricator requested that, then you might want to turn that on and choose that. One thing too is that if you don't have single part drawings or you don't have multi drawings, then you can actually turn those off or uncheck those if you don't have that in this approval package. So that way the tool isn't looking for those or expecting those. Okay, so we have everything set here. And one last thing here that's kind of new is there's this option to embed the IFC or the Tekla model file. Now, I usually upload this separately based on the process that I've shown you. So I will oftentimes in here just say, do not generate the model file, and I don't include that here. I upload that to Trimble Connect separately, so I just say, do not generate the model file. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, export to Tekla PowerFab. That will then create the package, and here we can see that when everything is all done, that we have the pfxt file, and I would copy that then into my Submittal folder. Now it's important for you to kind of just take a look at anything here in the log and just make sure that there's no errors or any kind of reporting here that went wrong during the export, and just make sure that everything is all good and included in the export that you expected. Okay, so here we can see that I've taken the pfxt file and copied that over, or actually cut it and pasted it over into the Submittal package folder. And so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a couple finishing touches to this IFA submittal. And the first thing is that I actually want to create a transmittal report, so that way the fabricator can see, like in a simple report form, all the drawings that I've actually submitted to them. So what I'll do is I'll go to the Drawings and Reports tab here at the top. I'll go to Reports, and I'm going to actually scroll down here. Now, some detailers will have customized transmittal reports here, but I'm just going to show you the out-of-the-box one here, for example. And if we actually say Create from Selected, we'll see that we have all of the drawings that are basically output here. So we have the G drawings, which are general arrangement erection drawings. We have the revision number, then we have A for assembly drawings, and we have all that description here. Now, one thing that's really important is you'll see that there's this at the top of the file, remove no in the title 3. So what I did here is I put no in title 3, so that way assembly drawings would be shown. If you don't have that in there and you use this out-of-the-box report, you won't see the assembly drawings. So what I did is I put that no in there. And one other thing that I typically do is I will actually come down here and I will change the name of the actual output file. So I don't want this like 551 Transmittal XSR because the fabricator won't know what that means. So I actually come in here and I change that name. Now, there's a couple different options. One school of thought is that, like, I tried to keep all the file names related to that particular job and that submittal package and submittal number, and then I put just a dash transmittal at the end. Or what you could do is you could just say, okay, let's just keep it simple and easy for the eyes to identify and just say transmittal.txt. The reason why I've changed the file extension from XSR to TXT is that XSR stands for X-Steel Report. That used to be the name of Tekla Structures. Well, XSR is not a commonly known Windows file format or file extension, and you actually have to tell Windows what to open that up as. So when you do TXT, then that means that that file will be opened up with like Notepad by default. So that's why I've changed that from XSR to TXT. So I've got all my drawings selected. I'll say Create from Selected, and there we go. We've got that report, and it's called that file here. Now, another thing that I'll do is I'll actually come up here, and I may even run a material list, as well as an assembly list. So if I come up here to my 350 reports, sometimes what I'll do is I'll run a 350 material list, and let's even without changing the name here, well, we'll change this. Let's do TXT, and we'll get rid of that prefix there, and I'll say select all the objects in the model that are associated to these drawings. But this time we actually only want to select assembly drawings. We don't want erection drawings because concrete and things might be shown on there. So really we can either select the type A drawings or we can go to assembly drawings, look for anything that's on that particular submittal. We can choose the select objects in the model, That will then show those objects related to those assembly drawings. And then what we can do is we can then say generate that report based on that. That gives then a full material list based on that. Now here we can either do that text file, or like I showed in the ABM submittal process, we can do the PDF. So again, what I might do is I might just get rid of that there and use the PDF file instead of the text file, which is a little bit cleaner and nice looking. So if I run that report, that'll then open that up here in PDF format. There we go. So whatever works and whatever's easier for the fabricator to work with. Now, another thing that I'll sometimes do here at early stages of the project, or at IFA or IFC, is I'll run an assembly list. Now, the assembly list, so again, we'll just go down here to be consistent, and we'll just do txt, and then we can get rid of that kind of prefixing here. And there's also, it looks like this one also, well, this assembly list does not have the PDF form out of the box. But if I just run this assembly list, the reason why I'm using this versus the bill of materials, the bill of materials can include like sub-material parts. And really the reason why I run the assembly list is it's also just another way to confirm for the fabricator, kind of like the quantities of assemblies and looking at total weight and things like that on the job. It's almost like a kind of like a planning sort of list for the quantity of picks and assemblies and things that they might be shipping out. And I just provide these additional reports so that way they can compare those against the Tekla PowerFab or the Tekla EPM import. So they're just reports in human readable form, so that way the purchasing agent or whoever does the imports on the fabricator side, they can look at reports coming from Tekla and compare that to what they've imported into Tekla EPM to make sure that everything is properly coming across. All right, so then I'll go up to the Tekla or File menu here, and I'll go to Open Model Folder. I'll then go to the Reports subfolder here, and I'll choose the assembly list, the material list PDF, and the transmittal. I'll right-click and cut those, and then I'll go over here to my Submittal package folder, and I'll paste those in there, so that way the fabricator can use those reports in conjunction with the pfxt import file for Tekla EPM, and now we have our approval submittal package put together. Let's go ahead and update Trimble Connect. So I'll go over here to the Trimble Connect tab page, and I'm going to go ahead and say upload model, and it'll ask me to save and upload the model. And so again, this is why I did not package the model into the Tekla EPM package or export, because I'm just going to upload the Trimble Connect model here directly from Tekla Structures. So I've got that all taken care of. I will then just, again, make sure my model is saved. I will then open up the model folder. And so we have that there. I will close out of Tekla Structures, and then I can come back to that model folder, and then I will zip up the entire model. So again, I can say Control A to select everything. And then what I might do here is I'm just going to go ahead and sort by name here. And let's just look for the 230099 DB1 file. So let's do Control A, deselect, select, right click, show more options, and we'll go ahead and say send to compressed zip file. There is going to be our model folder. Now you'll see that this is actually taking a little bit longer than, say, for instance, the ABM package, because it's actually packaging up all the drawing files that are included in the project. So I'm going to take that, I'll cut that, I'll put that over here into my submittal package, and now we have everything needed and required to then send this across to the fabricator. If you found this content useful, please subscribe to our channel and press the alerts button to be notified when we upload new content.